If we want to defeat capitalism, we are going to need a party that will organize working people to fight for the demands that we want and to win socialism.
Donald J. Trump is now President of the United States.
Point of personal privilege. Please do not use gendered language to address everyone.
I'm sorry.
Why make another video attacking the left? I am somebody who should agree with these people on paper. I am somebody who has spent my entire adult life advocating proletarian ownership of the means of production. I am somebody who believes that working people should seize power in this country and grasp in their own hands the destiny of this country, driving humanity towards a new golden era of socialism. But I can't call myself a leftist. I can't call myself left-wing. I hesitate to even call myself a socialist because these people are not effective organizers. It's not just that they're annoying and woke. What calls itself the left in this country will never come to power. But it is worth keeping an eye on them because various actual political groupings that have actual power will use them for various ends because they have deluded themselves into thinking that they are important and they can be easily manipulated. This applies even to leftists who do good work from time to time, who I agree with more, who aren't just annoying woke liberals whining about pronouns or whatever. The problem with them is that they're stuck in the Cold War. The left in this country still thinks that it's the 1960s and there have been fundamental changes in the economy that should affect the way they are organizing, and it does not. Now, a perfect example of a group that does do good work, and I'm going to say that again, I'm going to emphasize it so that you do not misinterpret what I am saying. They do good work, is Workers' Strike Back. And they have been making a lot of noise lately, especially in the lead up to the election and the election of Donald J. Trump. Now, Workers' Strike Back is largely a product, at least the rhetoric is, of what we might call the late Obama era left. Now, it was a mix of both social media and real-life political movements that largely emerged out of the dissatisfaction with the Obama administration. Obama, who ran on ending the wars and started 5 more. Obama, who ran on reigning in Wall Street and filled his cabinet with Goldman Sachs and other wealthy Wall Street bankers who rigged the economy and implemented austerity. Obama, who ran on getting our country back on track and went to Flint, Michigan and pretended to drink water. Obama, who ran on access to healthcare and what he passed was essentially a handout to insurance companies so they could continue to screw over Americans.
We invest. Can I get some water? Come on up here. Give me some water. Now, the reason I know I'm okay is because I already had some Flint water. There we go. Thank you. Thank you. I really did need a glass of water. This is not a stunt.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Nice argument, Senator. Why don't you back it up with a source?
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Now, after the failure of Bernie Sanders' 2016 campaign and his subsequent capitulation to the establishment, as well as the later failure of the Justice Democrats in 2018 to actually enact any meaningful change, the Bernie Sanders adjacent Obama era left sort of split into 3 factions. The first one is what we might call the woke defenders of the Democrats. This is your figures like the Young Turks, your Sam Cedars of the Majority Reports, your average member of Democratic Socialists of America or the Party of Socialists and Liberation. It is also the orientation of the post-blonde hair era Kyle Kulinski. The second faction are sort of anti-imperialist oriented figures who tend to align mostly with the populist right and the Trump movement. They tend to view the Trump and the MAGA campaign as a symptom of the failures of the Democratic Party to actually address people's needs, And they tend to try and to appeal to MAGA people. This is, your Jimmy Dores, etc., etc. The third group is sort of a middle ground between the two. These are people who tend to cling to a lot of the sort of leftist rhetoric and framing of issues. They tend to both sides just about everything, but for the most part, they do tend to align more with the second faction than the first, because the second faction is actually capable of enacting something and is not just a rote defender of the establishment. Now, if we were to characterize Workers' Strike Back, it is very much the third section, and we can see this with the personalities that founded it and are boosting it. Its founder is Kshama Sawant, a former member of the Trotskyite group Socialist Alternative, who was elected to Seattle City Council in 2014, where she raised issues like increasing the minimum wage and the oppression of the Palestinians. Other figures who have been speaking at a lot of their events and boosting the Workers' Strike Back movement include figures like Chris Hedges and Jill Stein. Now, I will emphasize again that for the most part, they have been playing a good role, even if at times I do not really agree with the way that they are framing issues, and their rhetoric is not always the best.
I'll disagree with vehemently on other topics, but you can work together on one. And the big thing is an economic issue. So if your organization is built around economic issues and class struggle, that's going to be a winning message. And if you could, I just hope that you can resist the infiltrate, because the deep state, as Christian Parenti has taught us on our show, that the deep state likes to insert identity politics to try to split up working coalitions. And so my best to you.
Can I just quickly say a few words about that?
Oh my God, bro.
You know what? I have another guest. I'm already 6 minutes over, but I'd love to have you back on and we can talk more about it.
Oh, brother,
is that good? Okay. Kshama Sawant, thank you so much.
If you go to Workers' Strike Back website, it's nothing that is even objectionable or that I really disagree with. Their demands are mostly a hodgepodge of sort of Bernie Sanders adjacent economic policies, trade unionism, and the odd virtue signal against the rich and Trump. These are not things that I necessarily agree with, but it points to a broader strategy that carries over from Kshama Sawant's socialist alternative days of trying to align oneself with the trade union bureaucracy in an attempt to revitalize the old Marxist strategy of creating a trade union adjacent movement. And we will get into why that is wrong. Now, earlier, we said that it's important to monitor these sort of leftist groupings because they tend to be sort of unwillingly manipulated by existing social forces that have actual power in this country towards serving some sort of outside end. And we can sort of put Workers' Strike Back in that context. Right now, the trade union bureaucracy is quite weak right now. They have historically aligned themselves with the Democratic Party, which is increasingly embracing austerity and very much feels that they do not need union members to vote for them.
People over. On the other hand, Trump is so new that for every, this is the second point, for every blue-collar Democrat we will lose in Western PA, we will pick up 2, 3 moderate Republicans in the suburbs of Philadelphia. And you can repeat that in Ohio and Illinois.
Right now, they need, if they are to continue to collect their dues and continue to be relevant, they need to make clear to the Democrats that they are useful to them. And in order to show that they are capable of creating a movement, they are helping to boost Workers' Strike Back, which is largely an extension of many of their demands for increased wages, better working conditions, health care, good union jobs for all, etc. And there is nothing objectionable about demanding higher wages or union protections. Nothing is too good for working people in this country. And it would be wrong to say that they are somehow bad people for wanting better conditions. The problem is that it is an outdated strategy. It's very much clinging to the traditional Marxist framework of things, of building a trade union-orientated movement that is out of step with the way that the economy actually functions in today's society. Increasingly, the U.S. economy is becoming a gig economy. In a McKinsey survey, 36% of respondents reported being, quote, independent contractors or workers, the legal classification for those involved in gig work, a number that is continuing to grow. Americans today, especially young ones, are presented with a very shitty choice of one, jumping from job to job in shitty service sector short-term employment, or becoming involved in the economic limbo of the gig economy, always looking for new ways to make a buck.
We are who we choose to be. Now choose!
Massive tech companies like Uber, DoorDash, Amazon, Lyft, many others, they act as a vehicle through which these people make money.
This is the app as a driver. So as you can see, it says ride demand is high.
And that is a huge barrier towards being able to unionize people for a number of reasons. The first and most obvious barrier towards forming some sort of union effort is the fact that many of these companies operate under a different legal classification. They claim that their employees are independent contractors, and they are classified as such within the law, meaning that they are not subject to being able to even form a union or to any real workplace protections, because under the law, they are working for themselves. So before you could even begin the process of a unionization effort, you would need to change the laws around this type of contract work. And in fairness, many leftist and liberal ballot initiatives have been trying to change that without much success in states like California. A second big problem is the fact that gig workers have a different form of consciousness. They don't have solidarity because they don't see each other. A big part of how you build the basis of union solidarity is the fact that everybody is going to one office and they're interacting with each other. They get to know each other. They know that Jim has a family. They know that Bob has a wife and kids that he needs to support, and they want to see these people who they know and who they have formed a community with. They want to see them do well. But that doesn't exist with, say, Uber, for example. Everybody's just in their own car doing their own thing. And even if you could unionize such a workplace, the decentralized nature of such work makes it ridiculously easy to scab. Let's say, for example, everybody who worked for DoorDash for some reason decided that they wanted to form a union. And let's say, hypothetically, that everybody in that union agreed not to drive for DoorDash, that they were going to go on strike to demand better working conditions. All DoorDash would have to do is put out an ad, and millions of scabs would be able to download the app and do whatever they wanted to work for the company, because there's no workplace for people to picket in front of. You can't prevent scabs from going into their own car. What are you going to do? Stop everybody who is driving from being able to do so in every city and country across the country? It's impossible. Another huge problem is that many of these gig workers, because of their legal classification and the nature of such work, where they're constantly having to hustle and find new ways to find money, to make money and compete with other people in the same sector, they don't see themselves as working class people who are employed by a company. Many of them see themselves as small business owners, and the same is true with many social media personalities. They don't see that they are being exploited. They see themselves as small business owners who need to hustle to make money. And because of that, they have largely adopted libertarianism as their ideology. And we can see this in both the election of Javier Milei in Argentina and Donald Trump in the United States. More fundamentally, something that flies in the face of traditional market narratives, the way that leftists organize completely, is that these huge tech companies that are often associated with gig work do not care about making a profit. They don't care about it. Amazon, for example, loses billions of dollars almost every quarter and only rarely makes any sort of profit. In fact, in the third quarter of 2020, they lost hundreds of billions of dollars. Uber spent an entire decade losing money. In fact, they didn't turn a profit until the fourth quarter of 2024. From 2014 to 2024, they lost money every single quarter. They operated at a loss. DoorDash as well teeters between making a few billion and losing a few billion.